Welcome. You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Mystic Moon Cafe. I'm Wendy and I've got June here with me.
Hi everyone, I'm June. So
Jake's in the
welcome.
background, possibly with a jaw wired shut, but we'll make him talk occasionally just because we're that way.
Yeah, just every once in a while. When they know that I'm feeling some pain, they'll be like, Jake, what do you think about this? I'm like, look to the chat.
Yes, please join us in the chat. If you go to mysticmooncafe.com, you can join us in chat there and just kind of say hello to us. And if you have any opinions or comments, please, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely.
But so Wendy, how has your week been? So I can start off with that.
I don't know. It's been a week. It's definitely cool. It cooled down significantly since last week when it was in the upper 80s, and now it's in the upper 40s. So
you've got weather like us now. Mm-hmm.
Yep, it came from you guys, I believe.
Probably. I made sure. Please send this down there.
Appreciate it. It's getting a little more fall and Halloweeny type now.
Yes, exactly. And Jake, what about you? Aside the fact of your dental appointment today?
Oh, it's actually been going on all week.
Sorry. Yep.
But if you guys didn't know, I'm an analyst for a very large tech company, and I have been working on a very dour subject of multiple sclerosis treatments.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very uplifting.
Yeah, it has been. I'm just like,
skin cancer and
yeah,
death.
yeah. I had skin cancer the week before that, and HIV like 2 weeks before that. And now I'm just like, I just want to watch kittens playing with yarn.
Yes, I don't blame you. Just need some kittens. That's all. Kittens and puppies. That's all. Oh gosh.
Well, but I like my job, so it's part of it. But
that's the most important thing. You're not going in there sobbing all day long while you're working, and it's like, I hate this. You're in a corner in the fetal position, just rocking back and forth. Yes.
I know, it's like, I want chocolate.
Yes, just give me some.
I want to play. I want to play fun video games. I want to play Pokemon Go. This is not an endorsement of Pokemon Go, people.
Good. And, well, I started my library talks.
Oh, yes. Tell me everything.
Well, it's just I've been talking at libraries.
Ow. Ow.
People tell me to shh, and I just keep talking. No. Actually, I thought it'd be kind of fun to try to put a lot of my travels into, just make people watch my home, slides. No. Instead of inviting people over to my house to watch my home movies and slides, I thought I'd go to libraries and actually talk about it. But no, it's I call it travel on the spooky side, because everywhere I travel, of course, there's always a little spooky edge to it, or a little spooky side to it. And when we go to any place, the first place we usually check out is the cemeteries or graveyards or churchyards. And and you can find out so much history there, and find out if this was a very wealthy community, and see if there was a influenza epidemic back in 1912. It's like so many different things like that. So anyway, that's I'm getting over my fear of speaking in front of people, which has really been difficult, and it's very, very hard. I'm still not getting over it, but I'm a little better than I was.
Oh, yeah, it's just practice.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And but no, it's been really fun. I've been going to all these different libraries and giving my talk, and usually the question and answer session has lasted quite a long time, so that's been kind of nice.
What's the most common questions you're getting asked?
Oh gosh. Well, they just ask. Well, I play this one video. This it's basically about this one video that I play at the end, just because it's very creepy and it freaks people out a lot. And it's a woman doing an EVP session in the Seattle Underground. And she talks about going to Rolling Hills Asylum in New York. And when she was there, she made the mistake of telling a spirit or an entity that was there to please leave this place and he could follow her. He could follow her back home. So, she did make this I mean, because she felt like he was suffering and she wanted to help him, but I don't think she kind of went about it the right way. Anyway, she's doing an EVP session, and she had said that anytime she did an EVP session after that, that this man who followed her would start screaming in the background. You can't hear it with your own ears, but when she did the EVP session and she plays it back, you can hear him screaming in the background, and it gives you goosebumps. It's so
Wow.
chilling. And so most of the questions are about that woman, and that actually she gave up paranormal investigating after that because she couldn't take it anymore.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So yeah, so a lot of the questions are like, is she okay? What is she doing now? It's like, I don't know, but that's a whole thing. And another one too is, why do ghost hunters always investigate at night? And I have to explain that it's a lot quieter then, and basically we could investigate 24/7, but we don't. Most of the time we don't, unless someone says, all my activities happening at 10 o'clock in the morning. We won't want to say, oh, we'll just come over tomorrow night. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that can happen a lot. But on the subject of investigations, I guess I'll throw the plug out for the Centralia Ghost Walk this weekend with the Ghost and a Ghost members, which June and I are part of. Will be at its 4 locations in Centralia: Shady Lady, Beat Opus, Anderson Bookstore, and Fox Theater. It's the Anderson Bookstore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's even more.
Are there
more locations?
I think so, but those are the ones we investigated, yeah. And we'll be present to answer your questions about the ghostly activity in historic Centralia.
So it should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a nice full day I think it starts around, what time does it start? Noon? I think it starts around noon, but we have to be there around 9.
Yeah.
And it's going to go till about 9 at night.
It's a long day, yeah.
Very long day.
That's true.
Fun.
So, Wendy, do you have any updates for us before I get to our guest's intro?
Well, I think I'll mention that Beyond the Unknown that was on the Travel Channel that I was watching earlier, and I mentioned to you. It was so much fun. Those weird, creepy old stories that, and they're basically in there. People have gone in, presented actual evidence, and forensics, I guess, going back in time on some of the things, but it was really neat. I suggest anybody wanting just kind of a weird, creepy, good time, go check that out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did watch a couple of episodes. It's I always forget his name, the Don guy from Mysteries of the Museum. He narrates it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like his voice.
So it's kind of like Mysteries of the Museum, except paranormal and aliens.
Don
stuff like
Corleone.
That. Is that his name? I don't really know what it is. Well, I'll drop it in the chat.
No, I doubt it's Corleone.
I know, right?
I was going to say,
I don't know.
Really...
Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll drop it in the chat. But we are now at the time for our guest. So let me read the intro. Let me put on my best radio voice. Me. Okay, so
I bet that hurt.
Yeah, I may not enunciate as well as I normally do, but here we go. Are you ready, everyone?
Yeah.
Here we go. Tonight's guest is Ingrid Kincaid. Known as the Rune Woman, Ingrid Kincaid is a born storyteller whose style of writing is a mixture of poetry and prose that is fueled by curiosity, sourced in wisdom and irreverence and woven around questions that beg to be answered. Ingrid lives life as an adventure. Her travels are both imaginary and real. She is an educator and workshop facilitator with over 40 years of experience. In addition to runes and northern mysteries, she teaches courses in women's wisdom and creativity, traveling throughout the United States and Europe. And with that, Ingrid, would you please come on?
Hi, welcome, Ingrid.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're throwing on some clapping sound effects. We got 5 more seconds of clapping. Okay. We're good.
If we give her a standing ovation at least.
Yay!
Yes.
Clap, 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 clap,
Good,
clap.
thank you.
Virtual reality, only not.
Yes, exactly. But, well, we really appreciate you being on our show tonight. And I was going to say, would you like to maybe fill in some more blanks and tell us a little more about yourself?
Oh, like where to start?
Wherever you'd like.
At the beginning, of course.
Yes.
Oh, I
In the
guess
beginning.
definitely at the beginning. I would say pretty much that the bio just read says it all, right? I do live life as an adventure,
I love
and
that.
I live life. I believe the power that exists for all of us is the power of the question, because believing we have an answer to something is like having the booby prize, because when you get it, you stop asking the questions, and the excitement is always in the question, the not knowing, because there never is one right answer, and I believe that's also part of the creative process, is to know that there's never one right answer, because it is always based on the perspective, the circumstance, the individual, the perspective. And so constantly asking questions, living from that place of curiosity of, I wonder, and what would happen, and how is that possible?
Yeah.
That's the way that I live life, and that's the way that I have relationship with my teaching, my writing, my travels, my relationship with the runes, with the ancestors, with the gods, with all the unseen beings, is from the place of the question, never from the place of I have an answer, and never from the place of, as a human, that I have the power, because I don't believe we do.
No.
It's all possibilities and thoughts. Yes.
Yeah, we're just part of something that is older and bigger than we are, and just as mysterious and just as whimsical. That's, I really sense that there's a lot of whimsy and mischief that goes on in the universe. And we take it seriously.
Yes.
Right.
Well, some do, right.
Yeah. Yes.
And so
Do you use the... Go ahead. Sorry.
I would just say I have referred to myself as irreverent for as long as I can remember. As an adult, as a child, I was always called, mischievous and in trouble. But my irreverence is that place of, I don't believe that there's a difference between the sacred and profane. That place of, like, we get this white light spirituality, and we get this rigid punitive judgment of how we have to be, and I don't live from that place. And so anything I'm going to say tonight while we talk is 100% my opinion, my experience, and as I do say in my latest book, and which is a repeat of what's in my first one about the runes, is that everything I say is true and nothing I say is true. The truth is always in the question. And
That's true.
so, there may be you may disagree with me, you may think I'm full of it, and the bottom line for me is I don't care. It doesn't matter to me what you think,
Right.
because I'm speaking from what I know, from the place that I stand in my own life and what I've experienced, and I share that, and that's all. I have no agenda. I don't want you to follow me or believe in me or quote me, for heaven's sake, especially if I'm swearing. Just
That's the best kind of quotes.
ask questions, right? That's the thing.
Yes, question everything is what I say. It's like you just
Form your
can't.
own thoughts and opinions.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Don't even get me started on that with people.
Don't get me started on some of it. You don't want to hear me talking, right?
No, it's like you don't want to hear me talking. Like that's the whole thing. We want to hear you talking. You can say whatever you'd like. This is your time. We just want to get to know you better and have our audience get to know you better and just see what's,
Okay. So should I just blab on?
Sure. Whatever you'd like. We can ask questions too. So.
Yeah, but I was going to say, yeah, I know a lot of people would be interested in your trip to Ireland.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I just got back on Friday.
Oh, wow.
Was there for 28 days.
Oh, my
20,
God.
wow.
That's so amazing.
Yes, well, as I shared when we did the trial run on Skype, is I arrange my financial affairs and make priority of travel. That to me is how I'm fed and how I experience so much. And so I very often say to people, it's like, well, if I choose not to have my nails done and I decide not to color my hair, that's the ticket to Europe once a year. If you just think about things, so I personally make choices about my money in the way that it's like, well, what's most important to me and how can I have that happen? And then I set that as an intention. So if I don't have it fluid enough from my income, then I say, well, where can I make a decision to let something go that's not so important so that I can have it put aside here for my travel? So mostly this is my second time to Ireland. Last time was 5 years ago. I had some very interesting experiences. I was staying on the peninsula, the Beara Peninsula, which is in the southwest part of Ireland. There's peninsulas that are jutting out of these rocky outcroppings into the ocean. And I had an interesting experience with a large stone that looks out to the ocean that's referred to as the Hag of Beara. And we were on the Beara Peninsula. And then I also, sometimes things don't happen to me as I am there. It's more, I know it's important, and then I have to come and sit with it. I sit with the ancestors. I sit with the voices, and then I am able to listen. Many times when you're there, the problem is that there's so often tourists that are bent on talking and taking pictures and not allowing themselves to be in the moment of like, well, put their camera down and what's going on for you, So I process then when I get away from that chatter. And I don't know I can tell you what I experienced when I went into this one, what they call burial mound. I don't even know if they are burial mounds. That's what we're told, but I don't know that that's really true. In Knowth, Knowth, into this chamber that has these 3 large stone basins. And they found bones or ashes or whatever. But these are like monuments that are older than the pyramids. And so we really don't know. This is a part of what I get intense about in my work is that, and I'm assuming, looking at you, we're all European Americans. We don't talk about that, but we're European Americans. We have a history. We have a history in Northern Europe and the British Isles that's older than the civilization of Egypt. Right. And so we it's like, what happened to us that we forgot that we had ancestors making these incredible structures just like the pyramids, but before, older, that still align with the moon and the sun, that still can give us understanding of the heavens, that served a purpose that perhaps we don't know what the pyramids really did or why they built them. It's the same truth for our own culture. And I believe that this is part of what calls me back to Europe over and over again, and what calls me for the runes is that it's a part of our own indigenous ancestral heritage that existed before the Christians and before the Romans, and that was in existence long before the civilizations of Egypt. And that to me is really important and significant. And what is it that so fascinates us that we're always going to sit at somebody else's sacred fire, like I talk about that in the book, about the story of the little bird. It's called Are You My Mother? And the bird falls out of its nest, and it's a children's book, and it goes to the dog and says, Are you my mother? And the cat and the horse and the cow, and even to a truck, Are you my mother? Because it fell out of the nest and didn't see its mother. And I believe that that's what we do. We, as I'm going to use the catch, like broad speaking, European Americans, we've gone to every cow and every dog and every cat, every spiritual practice, every spiritual, inclination, and said, Are you my mother? Are you my mother? Are you my mother? But the thing that we haven't done is gone home. To go home, go back to your own spiritual fires, and this is what fascinates me, and I get passionate about it, and fed by it. Is to go back and to remember and reclaim that we were indigenous people. We had fires. We played drums. We wore feathers in our hair. We sang. We did divination. We threw herbs in the fire. We don't need to always go to somebody else's place if we first don't know who the heck we are. Then you can go journey around and explore other people, but always go there bringing with you a strong sense of your own ancestral heritage. It's in your DNA, it's in your bones, it's in your blood, and it's how we look, and somebody says, well, but I'm part Native American, or it's like, what, one drop? Look at you. The majority of you smacks of that you came from Europe. And so I think that this is also a solution sometimes to getting worried about cultural appropriation. It's like, well, of course, we're interested in everybody else's stuff but our own. Nobody can say I'm culturally appropriating when I beat a reindeer drum.
Right.
My mother's family comes from the Arctic, above, up at the Arctic Circle in Sweden. And we knew the reindeer, we knew glaciers, we knew 24 hours of darkness in the winter. And, I don't need to culturally appropriate anything from anyone because I have my own culture.
Right.
And part of that is, well, this is how I describe myself. I've got the blood of the Vikings and the wail of the bagpipes. That's a really powerful combination.
That's a
because
wonderful
my father's
combination.
people come from, Scotland and Ireland and that part of the world, and then this Scandinavian piece, and it comes together in a really interesting, sometimes conflicting way. But that's, that to me is the essence of my journeys when I go to listen to the land. I don't know what my ancestors did. We don't have that, unbroken thread. But we do if we listen to our body, and we also do when we listen to our ancestors, because they were there. And that is also a belief that, to me, it's not about ghosts and creepy spirits. It's about, for me, listening to my grandmothers and my grandfathers, great, all the way back. They are alive and well in whatever realm I believe or you believe, but they're there, and that they can. I don't know their names necessarily. I don't even know who they are. But when we're quiet and we sit with the land and we sit in the silence, instead of being afraid, we open up and we can hear them tell us the stories. And they want right now, they want their stories told because it, we've we've been cut off. We're like a tree that's been cut off from its root, and we can't grow. We have to go back to the root source, and that's in the earth. That's in the soil, and that's where we're fed. We're fed from the roots, not from the above stuff.
Right. Well, that's one thing I have to say. It was so amazing for me when I went to London and Ireland and Scotland. Is just it was just the weirdest feeling inside me, just really deep, that I felt like I was home. And I felt the calling, I felt the earth, I felt, the vibrations. It was just such an amazing thing. And then I had stayed really close to the Tower of London, really close to the London Bridge, and I found my probably great grandmother's baptismal certificate, um,
Mm.
that she was baptized in the Church of London that was right basically where I was staying. And just the feeling of that just was incredible when I thought that, oh my God, my family walked. This is my ancestors walked around this area right where I was, and
Yeah.
it was amazing. It really was. And anytime
Yeah.
I hear bagpipes or drums or something like that, it just pulls my soul into them. I know exactly what you're talking about there, the bagpipes.
So, I'll talk about the runes. That's why I was brought here, I do believe, but I can't talk about the runes without talking about my life.
Oh, please do.
so, and I am a California girl. I was born in California. So that contrary to popular belief, there are people that are born in California,
Yes, that's amazing.
you know, and
Mhm.
um, and I came to the Pacific Northwest because my parents were in a care home in Vancouver, Washington, and when my father died rather well suddenly, but it's never suddenly. It's like when they're old, right?
Right.
Uh, However, it left my mother, who had severe dementia, left my mother alone in this care home and rather confused. And after several trips back and forth from California, I thought, well, I will move up there. Uh, I have that luxury. It wasn't the easiest thing to do, but I had the luxury of moving up to be closer to her, imagining that after their 67 years or whatever together, that she wouldn't last very long. Well, um, she did. She died in 2017. She lasted almost 10 years after my dad. So that's how I ended up here in Portland. And after being here for so long, my daughter moved here, and my only grandchild lives in Portland. So at this point in my life,
We're staying.
I'm staying, and
Yes.
and I refuse to be blamed for the housing increase in housing prices, which is very
Oh my
common in.
gosh. It's
Okay.
crazy. Yes, it really is crazy. Oh,
I guess it's the fault of the Californians. That's all.
yeah.
That's kind of a short story of how I am here in Portland at this time in my life. And so then I'll back myself up into many years ago. I was house sitting for a friend who had a little pouch on her coffee table, a bag with a drawstring, and curious that I am, I dumped the contents out onto the coffee table. And backstory is I was raised in a very Christian environment, very much Bible study and a little bit cultish, that kind of thing. So wasn't in my nature at that particular time, even if I wasn't practicing, it wasn't in my nature to go looking for strange things. But I dumped the contents of the pouch out onto the table. And when I did, what came out were these stones with these markings on them. And I looked at them, and immediately what happened for me was, I know what this is. I know this. And the other part, I have a whole committee up in my head. I think we all do,
Oh, yes.
The rest of the audience said, "Oh, no, you don't." And then I said, "Oh, yes, I do. I do know what this is." Well, then it was like, "No, you don't. How could you possibly know what it is?" And I was like, well, I realized that not only was what I was looking at was very familiar, that I understood something about them that was very, very ancient. And what I thought was that if I put them back in the pouch, it would go away. But it didn't. The knowing. And so that's kind of my beginnings with these markings that we call runes. And for those of you who don't know what runes look like, runes are made from straight lines. And they look, sometimes some of them look like letters of the alphabet. Some of them have other shapes. They're known to us because they're carved on stone and pieces of wood and antler and bone. There are many rune stones, large standing, like not megaliths, but large standing stones in Scandinavia with carvings of these markings on them. And what I know, and I can call myself also a wise wise woman, having lived more than 70 years, is that what we see and what is considered commonly to be an alphabet is only the way that the runes were able to be preserved. Because by being an alphabet, they became safe, and that's not really what they are. They are the signatures. Each rune marking is a signature of a sentient vibrational being that is ancient, part of the beginning of bringing energy into form, and that they each have a personality, a sound, a vibration, and that we don't really read them, we listen to them. And when we put them into the category of, oh, I'm going to spell my name with the runes, or that kind of trivia, we disrespect them, and we trivialize them in a way that is I can't even think of a word. It just upsets me so much. That we've made them into cartoons, we've made them into video games, we've made them into movies that are ludicrous because it's Hollywood glamorizing of something that is very ancient, very powerful, and very much not about divination so much as people would like to think, but about you becoming an instrument that plays the vibration of the rune. And when you're out of tune, you know it, and they will let you know it. And that it's not reading the book. Don't go to the book. Don't go to my book to find the answer of, oh, this rune means this, da, da, da. It's like, ask the question, hello, why did you show up today? What's the vibrational sound that you have? And how am I in tune with that? And when they come as a group, or 2 or 3, they make music together. And if you play with them, they will fuck with you. That's what I know, because they don't. And when I say they, mean the runes, but I mean the beings of the runes.
Mm-hmm.
They are not moral. We have all these moral standards and ideas of this is good and this is bad and this is upside down and this is right side up and this is light and this is dark. The rune beings, that's just BS to them, because there isn't any of that judging and moralizing. They just are, and they're indifferent. There's an apathy because they don't really care. They are part of what is, and we are either in harmony with them or we're not. And their teachings, their wisdom that they vibrate with, is so connected to nature that you can go to nature and find the answer. The rune taking you to that aspect of nature, and then understanding that there isn't any need to make something right or wrong. It's like then the unseen is not any more fearful than the seen. The dark is more dangerous or wicked or evil or bad or less than the light, because none of that is true in nature. How dare you say that nighttime is evil and daytime is not, or the roots are wicked, but the branches in the sunlight are godly. It's like that's what we as humans do. And I believe the runes, when you come really to sit with them and listen to them, and they vibrate with you, you get beyond that place, and then you understand that yes, there's opposites in life, but they're constantly moving into each other, and that they don't exist separate. The moment you're born, you are dying, and life cannot come from anything other than death. That's over and over again. Life comes from death, and death comes from life, and that's the cycle, and that's the beauty. And there's things that we see with our human eyes, and there are things that we can see without our human eyes. And that's to me, that to me is what I remembered with the runes. And the more years that I have been with them, the more you don't need the markings, really. You just sit with yourself and ask, where am I not in tune? And really my work, we've got rune, Asatru and Odinus and heathens, and all these labels that we love to put on ourselves that perpetuate division. That's all. And so I don't know. I'll stop talking if anybody wants to ask me some questions.
No, it was really very hypnotic. That was wonderful.
Yes, it was. But it brings me back to a quote from a movie that God made everything. It's only man who tries to decide what's good or bad.
Right.
I like that.
Right. And I think as the rune, my relationship with the runes, I have to stop using the word God, because that's monotheistic. We are so tainted. Our language, our positioning, we're so tainted by monotheism that we're not even aware of it. Even people in the spiritual community, it's like, spirit told me to, and I will look somebody right in the eye and say, which spirit? Because if you're talking about a singular, you're back to monotheism. And then we were not people of the monotheistic desert God. We're not, all the major religions that we're looking at, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, are religions of the desert and religions of a monotheistic God. And that's not who we are. I mean, if you can be whatever you want to be, I don't care. If you're going to be with the runes and you're going to believe in these things, how can you possibly be monotheistic? Because the two things don't go together. They can't. And again, like I said, this is you asked me to talk, this is my opinion, because it's even in the New Age community, there's just it's like when you listen to people talk, they're Jesus dressed up in a different dress or something, because they're still using the language and the imagery and the energetics of a monotheistic religion. And that's not who our ancestors were. True. That was forced upon us. believe or die kind of thing. And a lot of them did die. So to me, that's also like there's no God that created anything, because it's just this movement of the cycle of the cycle of coming into form and going out of form. And the question is, where did you enter the story? Where did you enter that cycle in this particular consciousness? Not there's a beginning and an ending, because the creation concept to me is that then there was something before the creation.
Right.
And there we
And
are.
And I love to talk. I love to talk in front of people. Put me in front of an audience, I will talk all day.
Good.
Yeah, please.
I'll go to libraries for you, right?
Oh, I had a question and it left me. June, what you got?
It's like I was waiting for your question. No. When, I guess I was just wondering, how do you kind of help people access a lot of the places they're afraid to go? I mean, how do you get them to kind of open up to you and realize what's going on in their lives? And
First, I would say it's about trust. And even when I work with people long distance, there has to be some connected level of trust. And I believe many times that comes through our voice. Well, it can come through our emails even too. Have you ever read an email where you just know that what's there isn't what was really being said?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, aha.
So I have found that the easiest way to open up is, no, that's not true, because I would use several different approaches depending on who's there with me and what I'm feeling about their level of fear, or even maybe where their fear comes from. But one question that I use over and over again is, and I will preface it with saying to them, I would like you to say the first thing that comes into your mind, not because I'll watch them, and you watch a person and you know, or you feel them energetically, you know that a thought came into their mind and they let it go and dismissed it because it wasn't the right answer, or they didn't want to say it. And so I will tell them, I will know if you don't tell me the first answer, and I'll make you tell me the first answer. So I start with that, and then I say, if you really tell the truth, and then put in the statement, so let's say, and I don't believe the runes are used for this purpose, but let's say somebody comes to me and says, I want to know what's going on with my relationship, or have I found my soulmate, or my twin flame, or blah blah blah, all of that stuff, or what's going on, and it's like, well, okay, if you really tell the truth, when did you know that it was over?
Yeah.
And most people don't. That's not the question they expect.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the truth telling, the fact that you're sitting here asking me to explore it says to me that something already happened. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And that the biggest thing that people come seeking is that people want answers from somebody else or some other thing, rather than their willingness to tell the truth. And what I know with the runes is that when let's say I will use the runes, and I have many sets of runes. I have runes on antlers, I have runes on wolf bones, I have runes on applewood, and each set has its own kind of personality, because it's the personality of the material that they're carved on, as well as the rune beings. And they will say to me, I close my eyes, they give me information. We want to be tossed, or we want to have 3 of us would like to come out and speak. So that's how I don't, and there's never a format or a spread or a formulaic thing that I do, because I it's not about me, it's what the runes are instructing. So we put the runes out. Runes will go right to the vibration of the root of that answer, because you come with a question. It's because you already have a knowing, and many times people want to be told something other than what they already know.
Right.
And the runes then will take us back deeper than that. This is not an issue about whether you're in the right relationship or working the same job. This is an issue about you're not telling the truth about your life. Isn't that always the case?
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
that's the truth.
And most people don't even want to know that deeper aspect of themselves.
Well, exactly. And then we, as those of us who work in this realm, we do a great disservice, because if we don't truth tell, and it's not about us telling someone, it's about truth telling that you already know. So you tell me the truth. And then the runes support that root. And it doesn't, sometimes it's very quick. I will share an example. I had one woman come for a reading, and she asked a question that she wanted to explore. And I asked her the same thing about the truth. When did you know about whatever that was? And I reached in the pouch, and the answer was the answer, not to the question, but the answer to what's actually going on in your life that you're out of tune with. And then when we did that, it was the rune being said, we're done. That's it. And it was probably 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And tears came, because it's like laser surgery. So she had tears, and she said, well, could we talk about some other things for the rest of the hour? because sometimes it's like, we don't need the blah, 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 all of that stuff. It's like, get to the root. What sources you? What's feeding you? And that's one thing. And the other thing that I do very often is using that creativity concept of imagining if you didn't have to worry about other people or time or money, where would you go or what would you do? That kind of question. And I ask beforehand for them to just speak what first comes to their mind. What happens when people tap into that type of awareness? It's like such an opening, because you can know by their answer how limited they are. How not limited, how limiting they are in their own ability to get bigger than the box that they live in, than the judgment and the morals and the standards and the rules. And then the runes come out and say, here is a vibration that you can make the shape of the rune with your body. You can hum the name of the rune. You can mark it. I have runes tattooed. I'm heavily tattooed, and I have runes tattooed on my body. I tell people, get a Sharpie, mark them, live with them, because they're going to vibrate. And every time you come to a situation that is out of tune, those runes will actually attract your attention. You will feel them. They will like buzz or vibrate or hurt or sting. It's like, oh, okay, here. What am I doing that's not in integrity with truth telling? Can I keep talking?
Yeah,
please
no,
do.
We're
This
really
is great.
We're mesmerized. So go ahead.
So I use as an example. There is a rune called Tevaz. It looks like an arrow pointing up. So this is a good place. It's a rune that's about truth telling, because it's very often associated in the lore with a god Tyr, Tyr, who's shown in art as the god with only one hand. And he's supposed to be a warrior and a fighter for justice. And one aspect of Tyr is that he never admits to his own ancestry and his own heritage. He isn't one of the gods. His parents were giants, but nobody ever wants, just like Odin's parents. Odin isn't the All Father. He comes from the giants. It's like, who are you kidding? Mm-hmm. So here's Tyr with his one hand, and the story is that the gods took away the children of the she-wolf, and one of the children that they took away and imprisoned is the great wolf Fenris. Mm-hmm. Fenris is prophesied to be the bringer of destruction of the gods. So they don't like him. So he was a pup, and they chained him up, and he got bigger, and they chained him stronger, and he got bigger, and so it reached a point where the only way to have chains that would keep this wolf, hopefully so that he doesn't bring the end, is to have some magical chains forged by the dwarves. It's also very interesting in all the lore. The gods never do anything. They never make anything. They always give it to the dwarves, the Durgar.
That's true.
So where they chose Tyr, we don't know. It's like roll the dice or bingo, you're it. He was the one that had raised the wolf. He gets picked to go lie to the wolf to chain him up with his new chains, and he stupidly or knowingly, doesn't matter because we don't know, lied to the wolf and said, no, this, you don't want anybody to think you're weak or a sissy. Let me put the chains on you, and I will pledge you my hand. And so when he chained the wolf couldn't get free. And so guess what? The wolf bit his hand off.
Mm-hmm. I would have too.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But the story's never told that way. The story's told from the perspective of the gods, always mm-hmm. from the gods. Poor Tyr, he lost his hand. Bad wolf. To which I say, a wolf is a wolf is a wolf. Mm-hmm. And if you lie to me, you're going to lose a part of yourself that you can never regain. If you are a liar, it doesn't matter what the reason, even if you feel like there's a justification in it, there's always loss involved in the compromise of your truth. Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes we knowingly say, well, I'm willing to suffer that because I do believe in what I'm doing. But the bigger, deeper, older question is, do you really believe in truth-telling? What is that? And it's not about right or wrong. It's about asking yourself what's really going on for me, and what am I willing to live with, and what am I willing to live without. So this is a great rune. Very often Teva's rune will show up, and so in this truth telling, there's always that place of if you're already caught in lying about your life, and I don't mean telling outright lies, I mean you're not telling the truth to yourself about how miserable you are or what's happening, you've already lost a piece of yourself that you're going to get back. How much more are you going to let the wolf eat? Right. And so this is for me kind of a simple example of how you can, that rune showing up. Let's say if I see it even before we reach in the pouch and I see it, it's like, oh, okay, we're looking at an issue of truth-telling and also compromise and also disloyalty. We're looking at peer pressure possibly, then that rune will vibrate in a way that it doesn't make a nice sound in your body because you can feel it. You can feel that something isn't right. And then when they come out together, more than one rune, they are like, well, okay, I will use this as an example. I write books. I love poetry. I knit. I ride a motorcycle. Now, if I'm with a group of motorcycle riders, I'm probably not there discussing poetry or knitting. maybe not likely. We're telling other stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the group that has come together for that particular gathering. But if I move over, so imagining that I'm the rune with the group of other runes in the setting of riding my motorcycle, or I'm the same rune, but now I've gathered with other knitters, and we're discussing yarn and colors and patterns. Same rune, same me, different aspects of who I am based upon who I'm with. It's not a compromise of who I am. It's about how I can be in different settings and still hold true to the all of myself. And that's what I also believe happens with the runes, is that when it's a challenge sometimes just to work with them singly, because they hold so much, and it gets unfolded, and it gets enlarged as they are with other runes that are in that particular moment for that particular question and that particular person.
I see. Now, I was just curious, have you had anyone like get so mad at you because of what their reading said? I was just kind of curious if they just refused to see that and kind of left in a huff. Have you had anybody do that?
It's very rare, and I would say yes. That I know of, one particular time, someone I on occasion am a guest reader at New Renaissance Bookshop in Northwest Portland, and this person, I don't know what they wanted. I can only speculate, but it didn't tell them what they wanted to hear. I rarely tell people what they want to hear. And she went downstairs and asked for her money back.
Oh my.
Yes. Yeah. And so be it. That's, it doesn't matter. But there was that, I would say that that's the only time that I've ever really had someone who was so frustrated, upset, angry. Again, I don't know, because we didn't have a conversation, but it rarely, it doesn't really happen. And I sense that most people, even though it's hard, most people do know what they already know. And it's just a challenge sometimes to hear it come from someone else and come through the evidence of these markings, and how it's so beautiful sometimes, the story that will come out with the runes. And they always tell me to tell stories about the giants and the unseen beings, so that it's not just, oh, this is what this rune means, but here is how this rune is seeking a way to illustrate to you the significance or the meaning or the severity or the importance of this particular message. And I think sometimes people are a little surprised. And once in a while, you get information that you really have to take a breath and use your own skill to find a way to deliver a message so that it can be heard, and delivered in a way that isn't it's not about being right or wrong, or I have the truth. It's about, have you considered this? Because that's what the runes are showing me. Have you looked at that? Have you looked from that angle? Have you explored this possibility? And then once in a while, something comes through very powerfully, and I really have to say, I believe, based upon my relationship with the runes, based upon what I'm being shown, I believe you're in danger. Once in a while I do that, and there's a sign, or if I have some information from them, I'll use an example. There's a rune in the Anglo-Northumbrian set that's called Calc, C-A-L-C, and it's looks similar to the Algi's rune upside down. And its meaning is like chalk, and it's very often connected with chalk, literal chalk minerals. And chalk is formed from skeletal, the bones of sea creatures, and it's about the earth and about minerals. And this rune showed up, and I was working with a man, and it was very clear to me what I was being shown and hearing was that it was there because it wanted to alert him to something with regard to calcium. So, it's like, I don't know I'm not a medical intuitive. And so I had to preface that with, I don't work on the medical level. I'm not pretending to be that. This rune is giving me this information. And I would just say, if it feels right to you, maybe go to your doctor, or, go see if there's something that you need to pay attention to. And what was interesting was that was actually, he was taking a new medication. I mean, not that that's to validate what I was seeing, but he was taking a new medication that had something to do with affecting the calcium levels in the blood. And that's what he knew. And he said that to me. And I said, well, then I would just encourage you to maybe make an appointment with your doctor, because I don't know why the rune showed up for that reason, but it's very definitely vibrating with that particular information, and you can check it out if you want. Mm-hmm. So I, sometimes it's just, there's also the integrity of us, or I'm collectively, of any of us who are given this assignment. I don't even know it's a gift. Sometimes it's a curse. They're both the same. Given the assignment of sharing this wisdom for us to be impeccable, to really be careful, and not to sugarcoat or put frosting on things, but to choose the way we speak very carefully.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it almost sounds like sometimes that you kind of give people a little needed kick in the pants. With some people being so comfortable in their misery for so long, and then all of a sudden it's like, have you ever thought about this? And maybe that's a really, it is a really good thing. Change is very hard, and change is very painful sometimes, but sometimes you just have to do it. And it sounds like almost like you are helping a lot of people along to kind of give them that little, maybe some a little more kick in the butt, maybe some just a little nudge, just like, here, have you thought about this? This is, something you need to really think about. Yeah. So
and
that's
that
really awesome.
Thank you. My focus, though, with the runes really isn't, yes, I have that ability or responsibility or accountability. My focus really is to invite people and to encourage people to explore this particular aspect of the spiritual traditions of the North and of Northern Europe, and to pre-Christian Northern Europe and tribal Europe, and that the runes are part of a system, one of the few systems of spiritual awareness that is still present, that's tangible in its own way, and that it provides an opening with the questions. It provides an opening for us to go back and do some connecting work with our ancestors and with our ancestry. And so I would say that using the runes to guide people or ask questions is a part of what I do, and a bigger part is for me the assignment of educating so that we can remember. And this is not about recreating something or so reconstructionist or reenactment or all that, because I don't believe that serves us in our modern day and age. I believe that we need to find the relevance in the wisdom that's timeless. It's not specific to the way we dress or, what kind of the reenactment type of weekend fun. It has to be relevant. How can I do this? How can I live with this wisdom? If I live in the center of, inner Southeast Portland and I'm walking on a sidewalk and driving a car, because I'm not going every weekend to the Renaissance Fair, that type of thing. So there's that aspect to the writing that I do. And then I also believe, in fact, I would put a plug in for a book that is new on the market called the Beyond the North Wind. I can't think of his, he'll hate me because I can't think of his last name. But anyway, in his book, Beyond the North Wind, that just also was published by Wiser Books, he says, the North is back with a vengeance. And I really like that statement, that the North is coming back with a vengeance. And I truly, in all my being, believe that as the ice is melting at this particular time, and not a discussion about why it's melting or whether it's catastrophe or not. When something is being destroyed, something is always being created. If you've got a volcano erupting, it's destroying and it's building new land. If you have ice melting, something's going to be flooded and something's going to be revealed. And ice is a crystal. Ice holds information. Crystals hold information. There are things that have been frozen in the North for a very long time, not just the artifacts, but there's information that's been held in the ice in the North that is being released energetically at this time, that is reactivating this wisdom and knowledge that was present there thousands and thousands of years ago, and for whatever reason got forgotten. And right now, I believe that that's also, and that's what the ancestors are telling me, is that this is the time that these things are coming back. And it is time for us. We need this piece of information that's been missing. And it's like color blindness. The wisdom of you take a color out of the spectrum and you create a type of blindness. That's what color blindness is. I don't know if any of you, I have a father that was colorblind and a son that has color blindness. So,
can I ask, are they left-handed?
No, neither one of them were, but that sometimes does go together.
Mm-hmm.
So
I never heard that before. That's interesting.
You know how I notice those weird things.
Well, and it's also passed through the daughter. My father gave that gene or whatever to me, and I don't have it, but I gave it to my son, one of my sons.
Interesting.
So you remove a color that you're not able to see. There's a color blindness. I believe we have a spiritual blindness because this runic information, this runic wisdom, has been removed or ignored or hidden. It doesn't matter. Pick a word. It's been gone. And so we've missed seeing things because we lost the ability to see that. And that is also that we've been led. Everybody points us to the south. Civilization comes from the south and moves north. The cradle of civilization is in Africa. We're focusing on the pyramids. It's like, well, hello, who was up there in the ice before the pyramids? There were people, educated people, that built monuments that still exist. And at one time, British Isles was covered with ice, not that long ago. So something's going to happen for us as the ice is melting. It's change. It's drastic change. It's happened before. We know that. The earth is all, look, I just came back from Glacier National Park, and Glacier National Park it's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
It was,
oh my word.
It
created
is beautiful.
Because of glaciers and raging water, right?
Yes.
So at some point in time, something had to melt. Hello? And great catastrophe created great beauty. It destroyed and it also created. And this is what I sense now, this reactivation of the rune beings, reactivation of the beings that are the northern, the beings of the volcanoes and the glaciers and the dark, the 6 months of darkness and 6 months of light. If you've ever been up above the Arctic Circle, it's an amazing experience to see that it doesn't get dark in the summer and it doesn't get light in the winter. This is wisdom that comes from that part of the world. It doesn't come from the desert. It doesn't come from the jungle. It doesn't come from the islands of the South Pacific. It's north. It's glacier information. We've missed it. We need it. And the earth in whatever she's doing now, in her wisdom, that's another thing I talk about in the Runes Revealed book, is that we've emptied the aquifers in the United States, let's say. We've emptied the Ogallala Aquifer, which is underneath like 8 states, right? Anybody heard about that?
I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it.
So whenever they talk about the water that was in the aquifers under these states, is they call it glacial water. It's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
A glacier melted, and the water from the melted glacier went into these caverns underground. So glaciers have melted before, and if we've emptied them, maybe what's going on right now is the earth, bigger, older, wiser than we are, says, you've emptied my ballast, I'm going to melt a few glaciers so I can refill the aquifers. Nobody talks about that, right?
No, they don't. Not at all.
Is that any less true? It's controversial. Nobody wants to hear that. But is that any less true? So what if what's melting is releasing information, refilling the aquifers, recreating the balance, because it's part of a big cycle that's bigger, older, wiser than we are. And we may not like it, and we probably won't live through it, but it's not the first extinction that's happened on the earth, nor will it be the last. And I sense that the runes are part of the revealing of the runes at this time, and the resurgence of interest is in part due to what's happening on the earth. Okay, so I'm going to keep talking. I told you I could talk.
No, please do.
I'm going to talk a little bit about rune culture and some of the things that some people may or may not know about. It's quite common to find people who work with runes who refer to themselves as Odinists, or who refer to themselves as belonging to the Asatru. And so there's 2 aspects to that I, again, would ask questions about. One is people who call themselves Odinists very often refer to Odin as the All-Father. And according to the lore, Odin hung on a tree 9 days and 9 nights, stabbed himself with a spear, starved himself, died of thirst practically. And then he looked down into the roots, because he's hanging in a tree, and looked down into the darkness of the roots, or the darkness of the wells that are in the roots, and he saw some runes and he grabbed them up. And these are the runes that are referred to as the 24 runes of the Elder Futhark. And everybody says, oh, thank you, our Lord and Savior, Odin, All-Father. You grabbed up some runes and you gave them to us. And now we're going to follow you. And I think that looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, smells like a duck. It sounds pretty much like a Jesus on the cross kind of a story to me. Mm-hmm. And remembering that all the sagas that we have, that everybody uses as their rune Bible, the Eddas, were gathered together and translated by Catholics, scribes, in 1300s. And it's not, doesn't take a rocket scientist or a historian or, professor to start reading the Eddas and say, ooh, whoever translated this put a lot of Christian terminology into these translations.
Mhm.
So I would say take it with a grain of salt because it's pretty tainted. That's why
Talk
on the
about
back,
culture appropriation and twisting it to your own
Mhm.
desires and power
right.
struggles.
Which most
Well,
of
and I
them
say
did.
that on the
Yeah.
back of my one book. It says, that I challenge you to remove the tainted, distorted lens of patriarchal interpretation and start seeing the runes with clearer vision.
Mhm.
Because long before Odin, long before the Vikings, long before Christianity, the rune beings existed. And whether Odin reached down into the roots or the well and grabbed up a handful, he's an entitlement god as far as I'm concerned. He's like a spoiled teenager. He's out there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Read about the guy. He rapes and he shape shifts and gets his way, he lies. And so, of course, he grabbed up some runes, but the runes don't belong to him. And these beings, it's like in all likelihood he couldn't have done that. But there's this idea that he somehow becomes the channel through which we have to go in order to understand the runes, which again is like it's a savior kind of what I call JC and the Boys, another story,
I like that.
That's a cute way. Yeah.
JC and the boys.
and it's also it's a male dominant, it's a patriarchal imagery. And if you really read, if you want to read the Eddas, then go in and read that there are the wells and the roots of the tree, and the runes are there, and it's guarded by a female being called Nornir, a triple female being, and they carved the runes on the trunk of the world tree. That was long before Odin was a gleam in his giant father's eye, right?
Yes.
So an Odinist, that's fine, follow Odin, praise his name and stick with the 24 runes, and they don't belong to him, and they don't belong to any of us. And so my sense is they're like, because they're countless, they're not able to number them. These are beings that exist like the stars. And so we only know maybe a few of these markings, but as you come to work with them, you'll begin to say, oh, there has to be a shape for this particular concept, because you can feel it. You can feel like the being is present with you, and you just don't know what marking is used yet as the signature. So stop being an Odinist, open yourself up and look at the runes as being something that don't belong to anyone, and nobody had to sacrifice anything to get them. It's about paying attention, being in alignment, being in tune, and you have access to this wisdom through your own integrity. The other part is the asatru, is back again to the them and us, because the gods are divided. They've got the Asir gods, they're the high gods. Notice that word. We got high and low. They're up in the branches of the tree. And we've got the Vanir, and they're not as high as the Asir. And then we have the Jotnir, the giants. And of course, who wants to deal with the giants? Because they're definitely not as high as the high gods. So I'm going to be Asatru, because I think that then if Odin's from Asatru and I'm following Odin and I'm of the high gods, then I somehow get to be better than you. So it also sounds like a caste system to me, right? And the gods came out of the giants. It's like, hello, they're your ancestors. So quit pretending like you're not related to.
Just like the Greeks.
Yes.
With
It
Zeus
is
and
the Titans.
Yes. It's the same kind of story that if and I would use patriarchal not as a maligning of men, but patriarchal as a system of dominance where the male is superior.
Right.
And that when you look at these other stories, we've got this other essence, this female essence of the Nornir, who are there, who are part of the all that they're part of what is beyond the horizon. They're part of what's beneath our feet, and they're part of the present moment, because they represent that which is coming into form, and that's which has gone out of form but will be in form again. This is not a hierarchy. This is a cycle. And so I think that that's also part of taking this back, taking this ancient way of knowing out of the clutches of a monotheistic patriarchal overlay. It doesn't belong to the people of the North. We were not monotheists. We, I don't know what word to use, but everything was alive, and everything had its place, and we were not the highest on the totem pole. Yeah, I probably can't use that word, right? That's cultural appropriate.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Not the highest of the branches of the tree. Because, and that's also then like, how dare we think we can be dismissive of beings that, say, well, you don't belong here. Well, who am I to say that, right? Because
Right.
that hierarchy comes, I think, also out of this Christian ideology so often, that it's like man was placed in the capacity of having dominion over all of these things, and we don't. I mean, what makes us think that we can even command the dead? We can't tell our ancestors what to do. I mean, that's again my take. So that's a part you will find that's very different than most of the books that you read about the runes, is that they come from this fixated number. Very few books that are written about the runes that include more than the 24. Very few books are going to take you, call Odin, an entitled teenager. I have the right to, because I can, and to take you into a realm of, it's like, this is older and bigger and beyond that, and it can't be reduced to that. It can't. They can't. I don't believe they will allow us. There's like 100 books on the shelf about that. And then once in a while, you'll have the voice of someone that will come forward and say, no, that's not who they are. That's not what they are. They're not an alphabet. Don't try to write your name with them. And I love these. I go sometimes to the festivals or fairs, and you've got these big, burly Viking kind of guys, usually in their 20s, tattooed. They wear Thor's hammer on their neck.
Of course, yes.
It's like, oh, that's a fertility symbol. Did you know that? Growling, and I kind of look at them usually askew, because I have two sons. One of my youngest is like a great big guy like that. He's almost 6'6", and he's above me, and so I know how to deal with that energy. I raised it, but then I just usually walk up and put my arm around them, and I say, "You're son of Thor?" Yeah. And I said, "Well, do you know who your grandma is?" Just stop.
Yep,
and
dead silence. Yeah.
Right, the eyes bugged out, so blah, 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 it's like, okay, well, I just popped the bubble. Because the point is that Thor's mother, according to the lore, if you're going to follow it, Thor's mother is Jord. She's the earth. The earth gave birth to Thor. And if that's true, if you're going to do that, then if you're going to be a son of Thor, you better know your grandma, because she's the earth. She's the being who is the earth. The earth then is the daughter of night. Not, the giantess, N-O-T-T, gave birth to the earth. The darkness gave birth to the earth. The earth gave birth to Thor. Thor is this ancient giant being who represented in the lightning that strikes the earth, that fertilizes the earth. We know that lightning is part of the activation of the nitrogen in the soil, which is about fertility. So we've got now here another old story of the mother giving birth to the son who becomes her lover, whom, and he impregnates her, so she gives birth again. So the lightning of Thor striking the earth, fertilizing it and making it rich so that it can produce again. How could you possibly wear Thor's hammer and profess to be a son of Thor and not know that your grandmother is the earth?
Mhm.
And to me, that again is that He-Man, warrior, macho kind of ideology. It doesn't belong in the rune wisdom. It doesn't belong there. It's another, again, it's just this patriarchal kind of bullshit that's wearing a different dress. So stop it, And it's interesting
Yeah.
because a lot of times when an old woman, I can be their great grandma, when an old woman stands there and says, "Do you know, you're not going to scare me or intimidate me. Do you know who your grandma is?" It's like they're puppies.
I bet so.
Like,
Oh.
"Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot her name. I should know." Yes, you should know.
No,
My hair's on.
yes. Well, they just basically want to try to be Chris Hemsworth, from Thor in the movie.
Exactly.
So that's their whole thing. They don't want to know the lore. They don't want to look up the history. They just want to be Chris Hemsworth, which no one can be Chris Hemsworth. I'm sorry, except Chris Hemsworth. Just saying.
And I don't think he's Thor, right?
No.
So there's that part of my work, and then as we're nearing the God, I can't believe I've talked for so long. I'm going to talk about my newest book, The Lost Teachings of the Runes. And if you're going to buy The Lost Teachings of the Runes,
yes.
Northern Mysteries and the Wheel of Life, just released in October, actually while I was in Ireland, and published by Wiser Books. Buy it together with my first book, The Runes Revealed, which I self-published through Inkwater Press, which is here in Portland, a self-publishing company. So on the Lost Teachings of the Runes came from a class that I've been teaching since 2010. And I originally called it the Norse Spirit Wheel. And it was birthed from something that I was shown in the middle of the night in the dark on the ceiling of my bedroom. So I have voices that rune beings, ancestors, I don't know, they're all talking to me sometimes at night. I say, "Go away, I have to sleep, I am human, visit me in the morning," because, I can't do this in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
However, this particular thing came through loud and clear, was very persistent, so I begrudgingly get up and write things down. What I was shown was it was like looking into the heavens and seeing the stars and seeing the patterns of the lines that connect the stars, and being shown that those lines that connect the stars are also mirrored on the earth and vice versa. They're like the ley lines that connect to different points on the earth, and they mirror the heavens as the heavens move. And then I saw it was coming together, the shape of the rune called Gar. Gar is the 33rd rune, or the 33rd rune in the grouping that's called the Anglo-Northumbrian set of runes. I believe the 9 that are in addition to the 24 Elder Futhark, I believe they are much more complex in the way they present information, and that they are what I call the runes of the giants. So Gar appeared, and it's like a diamond shape. It's like the shape of Ingvaz with the Gable rune laid on top of it, is how it's shaped. So you've got an X laid on top of a diamond. The point of that X is in the middle. And there's drawings in this book, hand illustrated drawings of this shape. And then what I assumed was a circle. But what I was being shown, it really wasn't a circle as such. It was a way to illustrate to me the horizon. And the horizon, as the word, means the limited circle of sight. That's the Latin translation of horizon, a limited circle of sight. So that no matter you stand on the earth, so you're standing in the center of this rune, where the gabo, the X rune, crosses itself. There's a still point. So you stand there. You then turn yourself around. No matter which direction you turn, you can see the horizon, because you have, when in any given moment in the place in which you are, you have a limited circle of sight. And all you have to do is move, take the smallest of steps, and you will see something that you couldn't see before. And you will also then lose the ability to see something that you had been seeing, simply by virtue of the movement, because the horizon moves with you. So what I was shown in this was that using the center as the place in which each of us stands, we don't take anything away from each other, because it's not possible to stand in anybody else's center. Just step into the center of your own life and claim, and that I say, claim your sovereignty. And sovereignty, that's another, I love words. It also means the ruler over a limited sphere of influence. So you are the sovereign in your own life. You are in control of that center in which you stand. And then what you see is the horizon. You can only see so much because of where you are. So the premise of this class was to always, no matter what's happening to you, what question, what situation, where you are in the moment, become present back in yourself, step into the center of this rune shape. I recommend, if you're going to do any kind of work with it, you get a staff, get some kind of a stick, a broomstick, I don't care. So you've got 3, 2 feet and a stick on the ground. So you've got this stability of the triangle, and say, I am the sovereign of my own life. And when you do that and you step into the center, you actually then become harmonious with the world tree. Not the world tree that we call Yggdrasil, which means the tree that Odin was hung on. This tree was there long before Odin. The world tree has names that are older than Odin. So become one with that tree. Then you have to have roots and you have to have branches, which gets you out of this high vibration, new age, white light BS, which is everything is high and everything is, up there, la, la, la. You have the root. And so you can represent that by inserting the Eavaz rune right through the middle. So now when you look at that wheel that you're standing in the middle of, you have the rune of life and death, the rune of the yew tree, and you've got branches and you've got roots, and the roots are below the surface. And so it's always the question of, where am I in the present moment? What can I see? How much can I see? What is beneath my feet that is unseen, and what is beyond the horizon that is unseen? And this then is a way for you to understand that the past and the present and the future all exist in the same moment. And that's, I use the illustration of an acorn, for instance. In the acorn, in the present moment, the past and the future exist, because the past is what caused it to be grown. Acorns come from oak trees. Acorns grow on the oak tree and then they fall off. They let go. They fall off. So it holds the past of what formed it, but it also holds the potential of the future within itself. And it can only grow into an oak tree. It can't be anything else, because it's an acorn. It's not going to be a lemon tree. So there's a pattern that exists, but in the present moment, that acorn holds that which is below the surface, the root of the tree that grew it, and what exists beyond the horizon, which cannot be seen but is already there, which is the pattern into which it will grow. And so then following that, the wheel, using it either, you can use it as the directions, east, south, west, north. You can use it as the seasons. You can use it as the imagery of Like what is emerging? What is ripening or maturing? What do I need to harvest? And what needs to die so that it can be transformed? You can actually use this even if you don't know anything about the runes or don't believe in the runes or don't like the runes. It's a concept that exists that can be used in your life. Step in the center, ask yourself who you are, where you are, what time it is, and then turn and see, what can I see? And what exists underneath my feet that is unseen, but which caused me to come into this present moment? And then what is it that lives beyond the horizon that's already there? It just has to come into appearance. It has to rise up. And so that is the essence of this book. And I believe that the reason that I know it's like part of the lost teachings of the runes is that it really gives us a way to be with the runes that reconnects us with the past and the future in the present moment, and asks of us over and over again, am I in alignment? Am I in harmony with the truthfulness of the way that life unfolds? And so I have words, support words like I would say in the East are the words anticipation. We anticipate that the sun is going to rise. We anticipate the seed will sprout. I have the word emerge. I have the word appear or arise, because that's what we know as humans on Earth. What we know is that we face that direction because that's the direction from which the sun appears. It's also the direction from which the darkness appears. And we forget that, because if the sun sets behind us, we're facing east, and the sun is setting in the west, the darkness actually appears up from beyond the horizon in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very different way of being than watching the sunset and say night is coming. But while we're watching the sunset, the darkness is rising up as a being out of the earth or the sea that exists behind our back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really excited to have taken a class that I've taught for several years, to have been able to condense that into a book so that it's available to more and more people, and that it's able to be used with the runes, and that it actually can be used without the runes, without the knowing the runes or working with them, because the principles that are here are timeless and universal, and they are indigenous. They are of the earth. So buy my books.
Amazing. I was wondering how long. I mean, do you still give your classes and
Yes, I do. My classes are very limited in size. I keep them most often to 9 people.
Okay.
I do have people that will call in and listen in live. I record my classes, so on my website you can go and actually purchase, like you could purchase the class as a series of recordings, live recordings. I also offer some of the things I teach in a more intimate way, so you have access to that. And then maybe once a month, I'll go over what you're doing, and we'll have a phone conversation. As I'm getting older, I'm wiser. I use my time differently, and travel is really important for me, as is the quiet time, so that I can continue to write. And much of what I want to write comes from the deepening of the relationship that I have had with me and with my ancestors.
Sorry, excuse me.
Okay, and that takes more alone time. So some of the group things that I have been doing, I limit. And yes, I will be. Actually, I'm excited because I will be probably, that's like crazy. In the spring, it is my intention to offer another class using lost teachings of the runes as the textbook, just as I teach an 11-week class using the runes revealed. And that is taking the individual runes 3 at a time and talking about their shapes and how they cross each other and how they vibrate. So I teach that class, and then I will teach again the wheel class. I just wanted to wait for the book to be released.
Right.
And I am doing a book release on the 27th of this month at New Renaissance Bookshop in Portland. It's a very well-known, it's been there like almost 30 years, I think, very well-known spiritual esoteric bookstore, and that's on their website. You can go on their website if you're interested. New Ren Books.
Great.
Register for that if you're interested. It's a book signing and a kind of demonstration of the concept.
Oh, that's great.
Marvelous. Now, rumor had it that you are working on another book in this series. I didn't quite catch the name, but you want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yes. At least at this point in time, it's called The Moon is Always Full. So
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've done a lot of work over the years with women's spirituality and using the moon. I mean, who doesn't? The moon cycles and all of that. I don't need to repeat all of that. And I really emphasized that we have to stop saying new moon, because the opposite of a full moon is not a new moon. It's a dark moon. Because once it starts to be the new moon, it's already reflecting light. So there's one night a month when the moon is in the sky and it's not reflecting anything and it's dark. But we don't like to say the word dark as a culture, and we won't even put it on our calendars. So we call it the new moon. And it's like, no, ladies and gentlemen, the opposite of the full moon is the dark moon. Say the word dark, it's okay. It's not bad.
Right.
Right, but nobody wants to do that. It's like, oh, you mean the new moon? No, I don't mean the new moon. I mean the dark
The
moon.
dark moon.
Say dark, say dark.
I love the dark.
I darken people. We got enough light. We got enough light. So then this was several months ago, as I started to work on putting this information together, it occurred to me is that we think of the word full as being complete.
True.
And whole. And that the moon is always full. She is always completely herself. If we see the moon as a being, if we believe that the heavenly bodies are beings, the moon is always full. And it is she who chooses, forget the science explanation, what do we see with our eyes? The moon chooses to move in and out of the shadow of the earth.
Right.
So she's full whether she's in the shadow or out of the shadow. It doesn't matter. Excuse me.
It's just how we perceive it, how we can see it.
How we can see it. So we could instead we could say the fully enshadowed moon. That's the night when the moon is in the shadow. We can't see anything of her because she's not reflecting. And we could say that there's a fully reflecting moon. Fully in shadow, fully reflecting, and everything in between, because let's say that she decided to be the timekeeper for us in the night sky. And she does that by moving in and out of the shadow of the earth, and possibly then earth being female and the moon being female. And I know that the Norse there's one little blurb in the Norse sagas that says the moon is male, and I just can't quite stomach that, but that's me. And then in the Norse mythology, the sun is female. So we have this really interesting triad of females in the experience of the humans, and that the sun is always out there shining, and the earth has sometimes, as it turns, is sometimes half of it's facing away and half of it's facing. So when we're in the dark at night, we're actually in the shadow of the earth itself. The earth is shading us from the sun in the darkness. And then the moon does the same thing. It's a different way of it's just a different way of experiencing the language and how we speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that then if it's always full, we wouldn't make the full moon or the fully reflective moon or the fully enshadowed moon, we wouldn't make them less than each other or more than each other, because either way, the moon affects the water of the earth, the tides, the electric currents of the waters, the salt waters of the earth, the salt waters of our body.
Mm-hmm.
We would have a different relationship with this heavenly being who is giving us a way to keep time. And interestingly, one of the rhythms of her timekeeping aligns with the female body. Men are affected just as women are, as far as how the pull of the moon and the pull of the water in your body happens, whether you're male or female. That doesn't matter. But women's bodies have another cycle that happens, that their bleeding happens to be in cycle or in alignment with how the moon chooses to move in and out of the shadow of the earth. And so that then is going to go into the women's wisdom part, which I believe is a missing part even in the rune lore. That everything is focused on the gods, always on the high gods. Just again, back to how many women in the Bible don't have names? It's the same thing over and over again, and all the stories are told from the perspective of the men. So going in and taking some of this information and saying, what would it be like if we had a voice? What would it be like if we had a name? What would it be like if there wasn't this hierarchy that set the gods higher? And it's not I'm a consort to the god. No, let's turn it. What if he's a consort to me?
Sounds like a good deal.
Well, yes, and it's not about feminist or male bashing. It's more for me of looking at the truthfulness of the cycles that exist on the earth and the coming together of the activation. There's an activation of new life that occurs with the coming together of the male and female. There is then an emerging of that, and then there is a dying of that. And I sense that the moon, starting at, if I do call it that, the moon is always full, stops people. So they're thinking like, well, what does that mean? And it's really about taking things that speaking about the things that we experience and see on a daily basis, and speaking about them differently so that we have a different relationship.
With a little more equality in the power, and not power, but just place in life, I would say.
Yeah. Well, right. Just give us back a voice, give us back our name. And that's also in the spirituality. And it's not about, was there a matriarchal system instead of a patriarchal, and were the women warriors? I mean, some of that we don't know. And it's really not, I don't know that it's really as important as it is. Can we find a way that we stop having this superiority over each other?
Right.
And recognize the differences that are necessary in nature, which we are part of nature and we are animal, and the differences we each have different abilities, and that doesn't make it one better or different than the other. And I mean, it's like the same thing. Things happen in the dark that don't happen in the light. And you can't see the stars, for instance, in the middle of the day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't mean that night is better or day is better. It doesn't mean anything. It just means something happens when it's dark that doesn't happen when it's light, and something happens when it's light that doesn't happen when it's dark. And it doesn't mean that the stars aren't always there. It's just how we experience things. And this, to me, is what's so out of balance with the way that the runes have been used and approached. And I would say, let's take them out of the patriarchal overlay and put them back into harmony of nature and stop having morals. They're not moralistic. And there's no good or, oh my God, the rune is upside down. It must mean, well, every rune is life and death. Every single rune is life and death. Take the mother rune, Berkana, for instance. It's the mothering rune. It's the birthing rune. Well, when a woman gives birth, she gives birth to death, because 100% guarantee the baby she gives birth to will die.
Eventually.
Eventually, right?
Yep.
So I'm a mother of 3. I don't know if you are, or either of you are parents, but when a woman gives birth to a baby, she gives birth to death, because the ultimate ending of that new life is that it's going to die. So if you've got a birth rune, there has to be the devouring mother present in that rune, because she will take it back, she, the earth or death, and it will be consumed. It will refeed the earth, and it will come again, just like we have. So you can never take a rune and say that this is only male and this is only female and this is only life and this is only death and this is dark and this is light, because that's that judging thing that goes on, that it doesn't belong there. It's like, oh, here's this beautiful rune that teaches the all of it.
And you can't have one without the other. That's just just it.
Right. You can't have the white light and the high vibration and the upper consciousness without your roots.
That's right.
And if you're afraid of going down into the dark to the roots, you don't need the roots to come into the light. We don't take light into the dark. We don't need to. We don't need to enlighten the dark. We need to experience the dark as darkness. Everybody wants to shine a light in the dark. It's like, hello, you don't go down there and shine a light on the roots. You don't pull the plant up to see if it's growing. Right? Oh, so
not generally.
No, right? It's stupid, right?
Not if you want it to live.
and there's the Wendell Berry poem where he says that, and I quote that in the book, that to know the dark, you have to go into the dark. You don't take light into the dark, otherwise you can't know the dark. And that's the truth, I think, about the imbalance of a lot of the spiritual practices that are always about transcending, leaving the body, leaving the earth. You say, where do you think you're going? There's no place to go. It's like, and if you go out there, it's dark anyway, right?
Yeah.
Wherever you think you're going. So and stop trying to get away. Why not stand in the center and experience the life you're living? That's what the runes are about. I told you I could talk for hours, but
it's perfect. This has been just a fantastic talk. We're kind of winding down on time, though. So if folks want to get a hold of you, would you like to give out that information again? We've been putting links to your website and things and to the books and everything. So
thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
The best way is to send me an email. The email is on my website is my name, ingridkincaid.com. My email is ingrid@ingridkincaid.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me. I can answer if you email me through Facebook and those kinds of things. And I would say, again, the easiest way to get in touch with me is through my email.
Okay.
And usually I'm able to respond within 24 hours. If it's a little longer than that, it's probably because I'm babysitting my grandson. That's the only time I'm out riding my Harley, and I don't care if you emailed me or not. You'll just have to wait. Right?
So there.
Yeah, so there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and send questions, and if I'm happy. I do work with people internationally. I do readings. I do consultations. I work with people all over the United States, and my time is limited, and so my private sessions are limited amounts of time. So if someone wants to get in touch with me, and I don't spend a lot of time bantering back and forth individually, as you could appreciate. It's like if you want to experience something personally, then you have to make an appointment.
Sure. That makes sense. And good to have those boundaries.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for this awesome talk. And I don't know much about the runes. They're just a little bit on the foreign side for my eyes to try to decipher. But but this has been very, very enlightening and wonderful.
Good. I hope it was in darkening as well.
That as well, yes.
Well, I gotta say, I'm half Norwegian. My grandma actually taught me some Norwegian when I was a kid, but I gotta tell you, this has made me feel more in sync with that. That part of my background.
Yeah, it's beautiful to find your way home. And then, it's fine, whatever you're choosing to do in your life, that's fine. But it's like, how can we know where we're going if we don't know where we've come from?
Mm-hmm. We
really need that. We need that part to give us a sense of rootedness, give us a sense of belonging to the earth. Because we don't belong in the United States. We've been told that. We're horrible. We shouldn't be here. But we can't go home either, can we?
Good point.
Nope.
So the only way that we can find a sense of self and not buy into that, I am not the enemy. I'm not the enemy, and I'm not responsible. I may be a recipient of things that have happened, but I am not responsible for things that people did before I was born.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way that we can have a sense of belonging is within ourselves, to kind of come home to, well, where did I come from? What happened to my people? What happened to the children of my your Swedish families that were taken away by the Lutherans and beat because they spoke Sami and believed in gods other than Christianity? That happened. Like in the 1700s, still it was happening in northern Sweden. Same thing that was happening in this country, only a little bit later. So it's like, I need those stories too. I need to know that happened to my family.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make me better or worse. It's just, we don't have our stories. And then we get always like part of this, I don't belong here, and we hate you because you're the conqueror and you're the evil. And that doesn't help anyone. Can I stand with you and let's tell our stories so that we can find a way to do something different together now?
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. So I've got to be the bad cop, and because we're at time.
Jake keeps us on a rigid schedule. I'd let us talk for another 2 hours. But...
Yeah, but we do have limits on our broadcast.
Besides, if we go past the 2 hours, I'm going to start charging you guys.
Oh, in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me get the plugs in. So Ingrid Kincaid, author. She's got The Runes Revealed, An Unfamiliar Journey, as well as The Lost Teaching of the Runes, Northern Mysteries, and The Wheel of Life, both available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. Let's see. And you said is it October 27th at the New Renaissance Bookshop in Portland, you'll be having a book release party?
Yes, book signing, demonstration, questions and answers. Okay. So that's happening.
Okay, perfect. And June, do you have any parting words for us before I start playing a little rock and roll? June? June?
Is your asthma, are you on the floor? Do we need to contact emergency services?
Okay. Well, she was having a little background thing going on there. No worries. But for a ghost, then, the plug is Centralia Ghost Walk, October 12th, starting at noon to 9 p.m. Ghost members will be in Centralia showing off evidence and telling ghostly tales at 4 or 5 haunted locations in the historic downtown. So if you haven't been to Centralia, it's got a gorgeous downtown, lots of great shops and restaurants to check out as well. And with that, I've got a little rock tune to play tonight for our outro. It is, I hope I pronounce his name correct, it's Leo Maricchioli as a cover of Born to be Wild.
This is in honor of Ingrid.
Yes.
Yes. So with that, I will hit play here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Ingrid, for joining us. And everyone have a good night.
Goodbye.
All right. Good night.
Born to be